Hello. So my name's Leilani, and I'm normally at the 8 o'clock if you don't recognize me. But I've been a member of St. Peter's for just over 2 years now, and I'm one of the newer members of the vestry. So to tell you what St. Peter's means to me, I want to give you a little glimpse into the spiritual path that has led me here. So I was raised in a agnostic to atheist family with a pretty strong mistrust of organized religion. But by the time I was in high school, I started longing for a connection to something larger. And in college, I found a church where I could find beauty and connection. About 10 years after joining that church, I had my daughter, and anyone who has heard me tell stories of her early childhood knows that she did not share my love of that church. By age 2, one of her first fully formed sentences was, "I don't like Jesus' story." Ugh. But I couldn't blame her. I mean, through the eyes of a toddler, church was the worst story time ever. A long story with big words and no pictures, followed by snack time, communion, that the kids and a bunch of other people weren't even allowed to share in. If only I'd known St. Peter's back then, where children are dressed at their level and communion is not arbitrarily withheld. One of the first things I really loved about St. Peter's was the call to communion, the recognition that it's not just the church, it's Jesus that invites us to the table. Fast forward to age 7, and my daughter and I were having a different discussion about religion. She couldn't understand why anyone would voluntarily go to church. I tried to explain that many people are very scared about what happens after you die. And it can be very comforting to go to church and have someone tell you, "Don't worry, we know what happens after you die. You go to a beautiful place, you're with your loved ones, you're with God." My daughter got very quiet. After a long pause, she looked at me, really concerned, and she asked, "So they just lie to them?" Friends, it has been 10 years since that question, and it still echoes in my mind. For me, it was a wake-up call. I won't go into what the Bible does or doesn't say about the afterlife, but I knew that we deserved better than that. We deserved a church that didn't patronize us with stories even a 7-year-old could punch holes through. So I began my search for a church that I could be proud of. My search took many years. I still get so much mail from so many churches. But it wasn't until I arrived at St. Peter's that I found my church home. Like for many of us, it was the beauty of the redwood and the stained glass that brought me in the doors. The music let me know that I would at least enjoy the next hour. But what kept me coming was the sermons. Finally, I found a church where the clergy took an honest and intelligent approach to the Bible, even the more challenging parts. Every week, I heard Mother Page and others give context for the readings, compare interpretations, and really dive into what it means to follow Jesus, even when it's difficult. I was invited to learn, to think deeply, to pray. I wasn't told what to believe. I was told what to consider. This is definitely not a church where you leave your brain at the door. But St. Peter's went beyond all that, and they provided something I didn't even realize I was looking for in a church. I found community here. I'll be an empty nester soon, entering what someone in the women's group termed my otherhood, sort of the next phase of motherhood. I love that term. It was time I started having my own friends and activities, something based on something other than motherhood. Yeah. The St. Peter's community made it incredibly easy, even for this introvert. Over time, I joined happy hour, forum, women's group, choir. Normally, I'd be having breakfast right now with a group of people after the 8 a.m. So many parishioners work so hard behind the scenes to keep groups like these going, and you have my deep gratitude. I'm grateful to be a part of a community of people so intentional in their community building and so thoughtful in their faith formation. And above all, I'm grateful to have found a church I can be proud of